Okay, so why should you consider doing A-level French? A few things, obviously. Bizarrely, it has become even more important since we left the European Union because we have deprived ourselves of the services of, I believe it's about 60,000 translators and interpreters. So those people who go in armed with other languages are already at an advantage. Business wants French. They say specifically there have been studies done that the other language they require the most is actually French. People in high finance don't just exist with one language. Also, because so few people actually continue with their language beyond GCSE, you have rarity value. You are special. To that end, it is sometimes a little easier to get into uni if you go in with a language at A-level. You get taught in small classes, which is obviously to your advantage. It makes you a little bit different. It makes you special. Languages are highly regarded by unis. Even if you don't want to go in and do a full-blown degree in French, it complements anything to do with business or econ or finance or law. They all go extremely well together. The other thing that we have going for it in our school is that we do actually do the AS exam at the end of year 12. So should you be one of those clever clogses who can start with 4, even if you can decide not to continue into year 13, you will get a qualification which counts with its UCAS points at the end of year 12. So let's have a look at the AS specification. We talk about it's divided into 3 sections. We have social issues and trends, which involves the changing nature of the family, which we've already talked about at GCSE level, how families have become more and more complicated. You have families with 3 generations living together, gay marriage, or everything to do with that. Then we have the cybersoc, as I call it, the cyber society, which you all know far more about than I do, and we have indeed touched on it at GCSE level. And the place of voluntary work, which is le bénévolat, which again we've already talked about. Moving on, we then have our artistic culture. My particular favourite topic, a culture proud of its heritage, which means le patrimoine, which means you can talk about anything from ancient monuments to baguette. Talk about contemporary francophone music, which covers all sorts of countries, all sorts of stuff. And cinema, you may or may not be aware of how massively important the cinema is in France. Obviously we do some more grammar, but you've done most of the tricky bits for GCSE already, so no problems there. Main difference is that we study either a literary text or a film. These are the literary texts we're doing at the moment in current 6th form. We have Nous et moi, les Delphine de Vigan, and we have L'Étranger by Albert Camus, which is one of the most well-known works of French literature. We do 1 in year 12, we do 1 in year 13, or we may do a film. That depends pretty much on you. It is not nearly as scary as it sounds, as I will show you when we move on to look at the structure of the exam in itself. Obviously you will get a full text, you'll get explanations of difficult concepts, you'll get complete vocab lists, and you will learn something about the context in which the work is set. Okay, this is how your exam is assessed. Main difference from GCSE is instead of having separate papers for listening, reading and writing, they're all in one big paper, which is an hour and 45, marked out of 80, and it comprises 40% of the AS. Again, the listening, big difference is that you have control. You know the scary thing about GCSE listening, when you hear it twice and then it's gone after the beep. With AS and A-level, you have control. We're actually doing them on computers, so you actually get control. If you missed a number or something, for example, you get to play it as many times as you like. Obviously, you need to balance your time because you don't want to spend the entire time on one question, but if I was regarded as a bit of a safety blanket. Okay, so listening, pretty similar to GCSE, reading, pretty similar to GCSE, and on this one you have a translation into English. As you can see, this is an extract from one of the listening papers. You've been used to doing this type of question since your FCSE. You have positive, négative, ou positive et négative. Okay, so nothing scary there. And here we have the AS equivalent of vrai, faux et pas dans le texte. Except at AS it's called information non donnée, but it's exactly the same. Okay, you've done stacks of these at GCSE. Moving on to paper 2, we have the translation into French and the literary question. Okay, big difference here for your translation into French. For GCSE you get a passage. For AS, you get sentences, but you get what they call a stimulus passage, which means that all the scary little words that you think you may not know are likely to be in the text. But if you look at the first one here, working as a volunteer is something I've always found interesting. If by some horrendous chance you have forgotten what the French for volunteer is, it appears in the title, Appel aux bénévoles. It's in the rubric. Lisez cet article qui vient d'un site web belge pour les jeunes bénévoles. It's in there straight away. So there's no way you're not going to remember what that word is. Okay, obviously they're like the GCSE ones. They're there to assess your grammar. For example, in that first one you can see working as a volunteer. You need to remember that that's translated by an infinitive. Travailler comme bénévole est quelque chose que j'ai toujours trouvé intéressant. Okay, but nothing terribly difficult. Okay, you don't not know the word for to work. You don't not know something, and the vocab is simple. Okay. Right, I know the idea of writing an essay in French on a book is quite scary, but if you have a look at how it's formulated, you always have two options. This isn't actually one of the books we're doing, but that doesn't matter. You get the idea. One of your options is always character-based. The other one is always theme-based. But you have that lovely little sentence there. Vous pouvez utiliser les points suivants. Where you may use the following points. it doesn't mean that. It means you must use the following points. But as you can see, it gives you 4 bullet points. It tells you exactly what it wants you to write. And to be honest, the questions haven't varied very much from year to year. So at AS, they are pretty straightforward, as long as you know your text and you've done your practice. Moving on to the speaking exam, similar length to the GCSE one, which obviously you didn't do, but never mind. You get 2 speaking cards. Just show you one of those. They all look something like this. Okay, it tells you which theme you're supposed to be talking about. This one is obviously about the changing nature of the family. It gives you a starting point. In France, like elsewhere, unions for life have become more and more rare. It gives you a little factoid. The number of marriages which end in divorce is forever getting bigger. Now it's 35% and almost 1 union out of 2 in certain big towns. Now, the question to start with is always the same. What information is given here? What do they say here about the divorce rate in France? Okay, it gives you that. All you're doing there is paraphrasing. Then the next one is always what you think about that. You will have done loads of stuff on this. Then you get some more questions. The first 3 you prepare. You've got 15 minutes preparation time beforehand. Then, a bit like the speaking exam that you didn't do, there will be unexpected questions, but you will be well prepared for this. It is not scary. Just moving on briefly to what we would do in year 13. Yes, it moves on slightly from the AS because, as you've probably noticed, the AS topics are very similar to the ones we did at GCSE, just we studied them in greater depth. In A-level, we have more tricky themes maybe, but then you would expect that in year 13. Positive aspects of a mixed society, marginalisation and those affected, how criminals are treated, teens and the right to vote and political engagement. That one's actually quite interesting. Strikes and protests, who has the power? Well, that is just so French. We know that. It would be very weird if they'd left that out of an A-level course in French. And politics and immigration, all very, very current themes. Whichever text or film you did in year 12, you would do the other one in year 13. This is how the exam breaks down at A-level. As you had for the AS, paper 1 is a big one, listening, reading and writing. The main difference is that as well as the translation into English, you also have the translation into French. Works in a similar way. Paper 2 is purely on the books. You write 1 question on one book, 1 on the other, or film. The speaking is actually, I think, the best bit about the A-level exam, because you do one of the cards that is the same as the ones you will have done for AS, but you actually get to do the independent research project, which is brilliant because you get to choose what you want to do, as long as it's talking about something to do with some aspect of France or a French-speaking country. So you could do something, I don't know, the importance of tourism to a Mauritian economy, something like that. But you choose. You do a little presentation and then you guide the conversation. Okay, so that's about all from me. I hope you will seriously consider French as one of your options. If you have any questions, you know where I am. Okay, au revoir.